Over 80% of individuals globally identify as belonging to a religious group, based on an extensive demographic analysis spanning over 230 countries and territories. The Pew Research Center's Forum on Religion and Public Life has estimated that 5.8 billion adults and children worldwide identify as religiously affiliated, accounting for 84% of the 6.9 billion people on the planet in 2010. Based on an analysis of over 2,500 censuses, surveys, and population registers, the demographic study estimates that as of 2010, there were 2.2 billion Christians, 32% of the global population, 1.6 billion Muslims, 23%, 1 billion Hindus, 15%, almost 500 million Buddhists, 7%, and 14 million Jews, 0.2% worldwide. Furthermore, around 400 million individuals, 6%, adhere to different folk or traditional religions, such as Aboriginal faiths in Australia, Native American religions, Chinese folk religions, and African traditional religions. A little less than 1% of the world's population, or an estimated 58 million individuals, practice other religions. These include, but are not limited to, Wicca, Zoroastrianism, Taoism, Tenkyo, Jainism, Sikhism, and Baha'i, with a history spanning nearly 4,000 years. Judaism is one of the world's oldest religions and is regarded as the original Abrahamic faith, which also includes Islam and Christianity. Judaism is a monotheistic religion whose adherents hold that there is only one God, who made himself known to humanity via the prophets of old, such as Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Solomon. Apart from several other holy books, the Torah being the most significant, Jews also consider the 10 Commandments to be divine commandments that Moses was given. Approximately 14 million Jews live in the world today. The Jewish faith, which has a rich and significant legacy of law, culture, and custom, requires a grasp of Judaism's history. Jews hold that there is only one God and that He has made a covenant or unique arrangement with them. Through prophets, their God speaks with believers, rewarding good deeds and punishing wicked. With a few exceptions, the majority of Jews think that their Messiah will arrive eventually. The spiritual leaders of the Jewish people are known as rabbis, and they worship in hallowed spaces called synagogues. The emblem of Judaism is the six-pointed Star of David. There are roughly 14 million Jews in the globe today. The majority of them reside in Israel and the United States. According to tradition, a person's mother must be Jewish for them to be deemed Jewish. The Hebrew Bible, or Tanakh, is the name of the sacred literature used by Jews. It contains the same books as the Christian Bible's Old Testament, but in a slightly different order. The first 5 volumes of the Tanakh, known as the Torah, contain guidelines for Jewish law. It is also known as the Pentateuch at times. The Torah provides an explanation of the beginnings of Jewish faith. Jews hold that Abraham and his offspring were God's particular chosen people who would create a powerful nation, and that God made this covenant with Abraham. Jacob, Abraham's grandson, and his son Isaac also rose to prominence in early Jewish history. Jacob adopted the name Israel, and the Israelites were the descendants of Jacob. The Israelites were taken out of Egypt after being slaves there for hundreds of years by the prophet Moses, who lived more than a millennium after Abraham. Islam, with over 1.8 billion adherents worldwide, is the second most popular religion after Christianity. It is a monotheistic religion that worships Allah, one of the 3 Abrahamic religions, the other 2 being Judaism and Christianity. Islam's name translates to submission or surrender, signifying the faithful's devotion to Allah's will. Islam is the newest of the main world faiths, having been created in the 7th century, while having older roots according to academics. When the Prophet Muhammad lived there, Mecca, in present-day Saudi Arabia, was the birthplace of Islam. The faith is currently expanding quickly around the globe. In addition to being widely practiced in the Middle East and North Africa, Islam is also quite popular in South Asia, with the majority of its believers being found in Indonesia. Islam's name translates to submission to the will of God. Muslims are individuals who practice Islam. Muslims practice monotheistic worship of Allah, the Arabic name for the One, all-knowing God. Muslims strive to lead lives that are totally obedient to Allah. They hold that, although humans have free choice, nothing can happen without Allah's approval. Islam holds that the angel Gabriel gave the Prophet Muhammad revelations from Allah. Muslims hold that Allah sent multiple prophets to preach his Torah. They honor some of the same prophets as Christians and Jews, such as Jesus, Moses, Abraham, and Noah. Muhammad, according to Muslims, was the last prophet. Muslims gather at mosques to worship. The Prophet Muhammad's mosque in Medina, the Al-Aqsa Mosque is in Jerusalem, and the Kaaba shrine in Mecca are a few significant Islamic holy sites. Islam's primary sacred book is the Quran, often known as the Quran. An further important book is the Hadith. Some of the contents included in the Judeo-Christian Bible is also revered by Muslims. Through reciting the Quran and praying, followers honor Allah. They think there will be an afterlife and a day of judgment. Islam's core concept is jihad, which translates to struggle. Muslims understand the term to refer to both internal and exterior efforts to protect their faith, despite the fact it has a negative connotation in mainstream culture. In rare instances, military jihad may be necessary if a just war is required. AD 570 saw the birth of Prophet Muhammad in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. He is sometimes referred to as Muhammad or Muhammad. Muslims consider him to be the last prophet sent by God to explain their beliefs to the rest of humanity. Muhammad received a visitation from an angel named Gabriel around AD 610 when he was meditating in a cave, as per Islamic teachings and customs. Muhammad was given the command to recite Allah's words by the angel. Muslims hold that during the remainder of Muhammad's life, he received revelations from Allah. About the year AD 613, Muhammad started preaching the messages he had received all over Mecca. He preached that Muslims should commit their lives to serving Allah alone, as there is no other God. The question of Muhammad's successor as leader was discussed after his death. As a result, there was a split in Islam, giving rise to the Sunnis and Shiites, two significant factions. Approximately 90% of Muslims worldwide are Sunnis. They acknowledge that Muhammad's real heirs were the first four caliphs. According to the Shiite Muslims, the only legitimate heirs of Muhammad are the Caliph Ali and his lineage. They contest the first three caliphs' legitimacy. Shiite Muslims are now widely distributed in Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Muslims read the Quran, sometimes written Quran or Quran, as their most sacred text. It includes revelations provided to Muhammad together with some fundamental material found in the Hebrew Bible. The text is regarded as the infallible word of God and is superior to all earlier compositions. The majority of Muslims hold that the words of Muhammad were recorded by his scribes and later became the Quran. Muhammad was not instructed in reading or writing. The first-person narrative of the book presents Allah speaking to Muhammad through Gabriel. The book is divided into 114 chapters or surahs. It is believed by scholars that the Caliph Abu Bakr assisted in the compilation of the Quran soon after Muhammad passed away. Siddhartha Gautama, popularly referred to as the Buddha, established the Buddhist faith more than 2,500 years ago in India. Buddhism is regarded by researchers as one of the world's major religions, with an estimated 500 million to 1 billion followers. Several academics characterize Buddhism as a philosophy or a moral code rather than an organized religion, since it is a non-theistic faith without a god or deity to adore. Buddhism's core ideas and practices center on the idea of suffering and its causes. Though historically more common in East and Southeast Asia, Buddhism is becoming more and more popular in the West. Numerous Buddhist thoughts and concepts are similar to those of other religions. Some key beliefs in Buddhism include: Buddhism rejects the idea of a supreme entity or divinity. Rather, they concentrate on reaching enlightenment, a condition of wisdom and inner tranquility. It is said that followers have attained nirvana when they arrive at the spiritual level. Buddha, the originator of the faith, is seen as an exceptional being rather than a god. Buddha's name translates to enlightened. Through morality, meditation, and wisdom, one can reach enlightenment. Buddhists think that meditation awakens truth, which is why they do it frequently. Buddhism is a tolerant and dynamic religion, since it encompasses a wide range of ideologies and interpretations. Buddhism is recognized by some academics as a way of life or a spiritual tradition rather than as an organized religion. Buddhism promotes both self-denial and abstinence from self-indulgence. The Four Noble Truths, which are considered to be principal lessons imparted by the Buddha, are crucial to comprehending Buddhism. Buddhists accept the ideas of reincarnation, the never-ending cycle of rebirth and karma, the law of cause and effect. Buddhists have the option of worshipping in their homes or in temples. Bhikkhus, or Buddhist monks, are bound by a stringent rule of behavior that includes celibacy. There isn't just one Buddhist symbol. Instead, a variety of symbols have developed to symbolize Buddhist ideas. These include the swastika, an ancient symbol that means good fortune or well-being in Sanskrit, the lotus flower, the 8-spoked Dharma wheel, and the Bodhi tree. The founder of Buddhism, Siddhartha Gautama, also referred to as Buddha, lived in the 5th century BC. In modern-day Nepal, Gautama was born as a prince into a prosperous household. Despite having a simple life, Gautama was touched by the hardship of other people. He made the decision to forego his opulent way of life and live in poverty. He practiced fasting and other austerities for over 6 years, but he gave up these methods when they didn't work. Eventually, he came to advocate for what is known as the middle way, or existing halfway between two extremes. As a result, he aimed to live a life free from both social excess and deprivation. He vowed not to rise until he had achieved the highest enlightenment after gathering his strength and sitting beneath a Bodhi tree in West Central India. At the age of 35, Siddhartha became a Buddha after overcoming Mara, an evil spirit who had enticed him with materialistic pleasures and wants. He taught people how to reach his spiritual state for the remainder of his life. Following Gautama's death in 483 BC, his disciples started putting together a religious movement. The the core of Buddhism was laid forth by the teachings of Buddha. The Mauryan Indian ruler Ashoka the Great established Buddhism as the official religion of India in 3rd century BC. Missionary work was promoted and the Buddhist monasteries were constructed. Over the course of the following several centuries, Buddhism started to leave India. Buddhists developed a variety of philosophical perspectives, with various followers understanding the same concepts in different ways. The Hans destroyed hundreds of Buddhist monasteries when they invaded India in the 6th century, but they were ultimately driven out of the nation. During the Middle Ages, Islam rapidly expanded over the area, pushing Buddhism to the background. However, Buddhism finally made its way to China, Korea, Japan, Central and Southeast Asia, and the West in the 20th century. Today, many forms of Buddhism exist around the world. The 3 main types that represent specific geographical areas include Theravada Buddhism, prevalent in Thailand, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Laos, and Burma. Mahayana Buddhism, prevalent in China, Japan, Taiwan, Korea, Singapore, and Vietnam. Mahayana Buddhism and Zen Buddhism are practiced in many of the same locations. It places less emphasis on religious texts, rituals, or ideas, and more on simplicity and meditation. The name Zen implies meditation. The life and teachings of Jesus of Nazareth serve as the foundation of the monotheistic religion known as Christianity. It was around the beginning of the 1st century. The Hebrew Bible, also referred to as the Old Testament by Christians, and the New Testament are considered to be the canonical scriptures of Christianity, which emerged from Judaism. There are 3 primary branches of Christianity: Protestant, Eastern Orthodox, and Catholic. When the Catholic Pope and the Orthodox Patriarch excommunicated one another in 1054 over issues of primacy, Catholic and Eastern Orthodox Christianity broke apart. Martin Luther's 95 Theses, which criticized numerous Catholic Church practices, were distributed in 1517, marking the start of the Protestant Catholic schism. The 3 branches of Christianity have distinct specialities, though there is a lot of overlap. Orthodox Christianity originated in the eastern half of the Roman Empire, with its center being in Constantinople, the capital of Byzantium. When the Roman Empire fell to the Muslim Turks in 1453, Eastern Orthodox Christianity moved to Russia. Eastern Orthodox Christianity is also found in Eastern Europe and Southern Europe, with notable examples in Africa, Ethiopia, as well as in places where a large number of its followers have migrated, the United States, Canada. Catholic Christianity is found in a broader range of locations, having formed primarily around the historic Roman Empire and then evolved to Northern and Western Europe. But Catholicism did not end there. The 15th century saw the start of the age of colonial expansion, which introduced Catholicism to many regions, including the Philippines, much of the Americas, and the Caribbean, and a sizable portion of Africa. The most recent Christian branch to emerge is Protestantism, although it has also spread worldwide. The earliest Protestant nations were in Northern Europe, but once more as a result of colonization, Protestant Christianity was brought to other countries, including South Africa, Ghana, New Zealand, and the United States. Protestant Christians have a major role in the contemporary spread of Christianity, especially in Asia. The Bible, considered the sacred text of Christianity, tells the tales of Earth's creation from its earliest moments until the rise of Christianity in the 1st century AD. Over the ages, both the Old and New Testaments have experienced modifications, such as the 1611 release of the King James Bible and the addition of other later discovered volumes. The Old Testament, which begins with the creation of the earth and ends with the Jews' expulsion to Babylon, is the first book of the Bible. It includes stories about Noah, the flood, Moses, and other topics. The Hebrew Bible, which has its roots in the antique religion of Judaism, is remarkably similar to the Old Testament of the Bible. Although the actual origins of the Jewish religion are uncertain, an Egyptian inscription from the 13th century BC is the earliest documented reference of Israel. An inscription pertaining to the king of Moab from the 9th century BC contains the oldest documented reference to the Jewish god Yahweh. There are rumors that Yahweh may have been derived from the mountain god Yahweh in ancient Edom or Se. Historians believe that the beginnings of what would become the Old Testament occurred in the 8th century BC, under the reign of Hezekiah of Judah. This was due to the fact that royal scribes documented both heroic narratives and royal history. The compilation and edition of the books of Deuteronomy and Judges occurred in the 6th century BC, during the reign of Josiah. After Judah was absorbed by the growing Persian Empire, the Hebrew Bible took on its final shape over the course of the following 200 years. In the 3rd century BC, after Alexander the Great's conquest, the Hebrew Bible was translated into Greek. This Greek translation, also called the Septuagint, was started at King Ptolemy of Egypt's request to be added to the Alexandrian library. The Bible that the early Christians in Rome used was the Septuagint. Written during this time, the book of Daniel was added at the last minute to the Septuagint, despite the text's own assertion that it was composed in 586 BC. The life of Jesus and the early years of Christianity are chronicled in the New Testament, with special emphasis on Paul's attempts to disseminate Jesus' teachings. It compiles 27 books, all of which were written in Greek at first. The Gospels are the portions of the New Testament that focus on Jesus. They were composed approximately 40 years after the epistles, which are the first written documents in Christianity. Churches began distributing Paul's letters about 50 AD, maybe right before Paul passed away. The letters were duplicated and circulated by scribes. Books were created from the letters as they continued to circulate. Historians contend that several of the New Testament texts ascribed to Paul were actually written by followers and imitators of Paul, since some church members were inspired by him to start penning down and distributing their own letters. As knowledge of Paul's teaching spread, churches started to develop an oral tradition of narrating stories about Jesus that included parables and narratives of his appearances after his resurrection. Paul is credited with writing portions of the New Testament that portray Jesus in a first-person perspective. However, Paul never saw Jesus in person, and the Gospels had not yet been completed when Paul wrote his letters. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the world of religions. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more insightful content on spirituality and faith. Until next time, may peace and blessings be upon you. Farewell.